going to start, but I want to just let you know before I read my spiel that we're supposed to read every meeting, that we're having some Wi-Fi issues. So we're going to start because quite a lot of our agenda doesn't require that right off the bat, and then we'll work off hard copy, which we used to for a long time. And but I just wanted to let you know that what you're going to see a lot of movement all around is that we are having Wi-Fi issues. So bear with us as we go old school. Speaking of being in old school. So here we are, and I welcome you. The mission of the City School District of Albany is to educate and prepare all students for college and career, citizenship, and life in partnership with our diverse community. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag and we will now go to the superintendent's reports. Dr. Wilkins.
Good evening. Thank you. Mother Nature threw us another curveball this week with one of the worst March snowstorms our city has experienced. Digging out from a storm like that is a big undertaking. I want to give a huge thank you to the Director of Facilities, Brian Dangler, and his team for their Herculean efforts to get our parking lots and sidewalks clear to reopen school today. They have done a great work in helping us get back and up and running. I can't thank them enough because they have been up since 3 o'clock yesterday doing the plowing for our schools, our 17 buildings, and AP. I also want to make all of our families aware that we have absolutely no margin left to absorb additional emergency closing this school year. We already had used 3 of our scheduled snow days before this week's storm. The 2 days we used this week now has left us right at the minimum number of instructional days required by state ed. If the weather forces us to close again before the winter season ends, let's hope not, we would have to have a makeup day. We most likely would do that by taking the day away from spring recess in April. We have tentatively identified Friday, April 21st. So let's keep our fingers crossed that that doesn't happen, but I did want to make sure everyone's aware of that situation. We are also in discussions with the leadership of our unions about making up 2 staff days we lost this week. We are already down to the minimum number of contractual days for teachers and staff before this week's storm. I will keep you posted on how we agree to make up those 2 days before the end of the school year. This is good news. It is my pleasure to let you know that one of our building leaders is among this year's recipients of CASDA Principal of the Year Award. CASDA has selected William S. Hackett Middle School Principal Mike Polino as one of the 3 area recipients this year. This is a well-deserved honor. Mike's leadership has been instrumental in Hackett's steady improvement. From a school receivership 1 year away from state takeover to a school with the best outcomes for 6th graders on last year's state ELA and math exams. We are all very excited to see Mike recognized in this way for his dedication, commitment, and tireless work on behalf of all of his students and families. CASA will recognize the Principal of the Year recipients as its annual awards dinner on April 12th. We'll get more information out to our Albany City School District family. The newest additions to our Parent University programming are now in session thanks to My Brother's Keeper Challenge grant. Arbor Hill Elementary School kicked off things on Saturday with a literacy workshop. We'll continue this Saturday morning with a session on restorative justice at Albany High, and next Tuesday evening at Giffen with our first session on kindergarten readiness. The full schedules for these new parent and family engagement programs is available on our website, both on the homepage and on the Parent University section. Reminder for all of our families that the New York State ELA exam is coming up at the end of the month. Our students in grades 3 through 8 will be taking the ELA exams on March 28th, 29th, and 30th. As this year's exam approaches, please keep in mind that no single test provides a complete picture of a child's ability. When combined with grades, classroom activity, unit quizzes, tests, and district-level assessments such as the NWEA, the state annual test can provide important information about a child's academic progress. Parents and guardians, you can support your child by making sure he or she gets plenty of sleep the night before each test. Starts the day with a healthy breakfast. If you have any questions or concern, please contact your building principal. Our students will have a little bit of a break before taking the state math exam this year. That comes up in the first week of May. Then finally, just a few quick reminders. We are accepting applications throughout March for our annual pre-kindergarten lottery. You can visit albanyschools.org to download an application and for more information about all of our pre-K programs. Lottery will be held on April 11th in conjunction with the Magnet Lottery. Next is Music in Our Schools Month. Continues next Wednesday with the annual All-City Chorus concert at Myers Middle School. Again, the concert will begin at 6:30 p.m. Next Friday, the Myers Select Chorus Jazz Band and Stage Band will perform at the Empire State Concourse at 12:30 p.m. The Hackett Chorus will perform in the same location the following Monday, March 27th. That performance begins at noon. And as you know, we had to postpone our All-City String Concert because of weather this week. That concert has been rescheduled for Tuesday, April 4th at Hackett Middle School. And last but not least, I should say, a reminder of that Founders Day is coming up next Friday, March 24th at the Italian American Community Center on Washington Avenue Extension. If you haven't reserved your tickets already, please remember to do so. The deadline is tomorrow. The Albany City Council PTA does an absolutely wonderful job organizing this great celebration each year. It has always been an uplifting evening, and I hope everyone will be able to attend. And it's really quite a nice activity, giving praise to our volunteers in the Albany City School District. And that's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Wilkins. So we are still without internet service, and it is now time for the public comment section. The Albany Board of Education welcomes district residents, parents, students, and other people to our meeting. Community involvement at board meetings is encouraged so that we can better understand your views. By law, individual student information and particular personnel issues cannot be discussed in public. We encourage you to share specific student or staff concerns with the superintendent or other appropriate staff. Please note that the board generally does not respond to public comment. If you need a response, please consider contacting us via email, phone, or postal mail. When recognized by the board president, please state your name and city of residence. Statements are restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes, and speakers will be notified by the board president when their time has expired. The first person, please, Imam Faisal Ahmad.
Bismillah ar-Rahman. In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. First of all, I want to say I'm very honored to speak back at my high school. I graduated in '97, and it looks beautiful to be back here. And I want to thank all of you for having this meeting tonight. This is a potentially historic week. We had 2 snow days in a row. I was very happy to grow up here in Albany. I went to Philip Schuyler for kindergarten, then school 16. And 6th grade, I had a teacher, Mr. Robert York. He was a very nice teacher, and he took me aside. But before I talk about what he did, I had gone through a lot of bullying because I was different. I looked different. My name sounded weird. And my food was different, that my mom would send me the curries and lunch. So Mr. York saw that I was feeling like a little bit bullied around, and he took me aside and he took out a picture of Mecca. And he said, one of my other students gave this to me. And he just talked to me about my religion, and it really had a big impact in my education. And I felt, after being through so much bullying, I felt like confident about my faith, and I felt like I wanted to go to school. And as a point here, I think that confidence is very essential for learning, and kids, they need to feel accepted and feel some self-confidence. And so this is something that affected me going through Albany schools. I went to Hackett, then Albany High. I graduated with honors, and I was accepted to many Ivy League schools. But I decided to stay local because of my parents. I went to RPI, then I worked for IBM. I got a patent, and I came back after doing theological studies, kind of changing my career. Came back to Albany, and started a school myself, a religious school. I wanted to say that the idea of having the Eids, the holidays for the Muslim kids, it's something that is not just beneficial because of numbers or demographics, but I think kids will feel more integrated. They will feel like they're part of the community. They'll feel like they can contribute to something that they're part of. And so it gives them a brighter outlook. Like they become, part of the society, and they feel like they can contribute. When they graduate, they want to make the world a better place, and they feel like they're part of it because their religion, their names are on the calendar, and they can, feel like they're contributing to that society. Also, it helps them to feel motivated to excel and to be more tolerant, and because there's mutual understanding. When you feel like other people understand you, you want to also be accepting of them and be more tolerant. So I think this is something that would really be beneficial for the whole city school district, and the kids will be more motivated, more successful, and I hope my story would help in making your decision. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Imam. Mr. Abdul Kadir Elmi.
Good evening to you all, and I am delighted and I am honored to be here. I am the Imam of the Mosque As-Salam in Central Avenue, and I have been the Imam for almost 10 years, if not more. We have a lot of students that go to the schools of the Albany district, and some of them are as good as Imam Faisal that you have heard, if not better, but not as good as Wayne Jackson that you have just recognized it. We may not have Wayne Jackson as good as Wayne Jackson, but we have some kids who graduate from here, and they are some of the fabric of the society, and they contribute to the society of our area. We have a lot of kids, no doubt about it. And these kids, when we have two of our major festivals of the year, they are torn into either going to school or being with the family and celebrating and enjoying their festivals with the family. And most of the kids, even if nobody give them off, they rather be with the family and have their celebrations. So anyway, the kids are off that day on their own, or the family write a little note to excuse. And I want to express that there is a lot of the principals and a lot of the teachers, they accommodate our kids. I want to thank you for the board, and thank you the principals and the teachers who do so. What we are requesting is that if the school board can consider that those two festivals of our religion would be considered to give the kids off those days, and it will make the kids more happier, and it will encourage them to be better students, as we say, because they have their festival off. So now they can appreciate the help of the school board and the schools they go. I thank you very much, and I hope that you will consider our request. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Imam. Salah Mukhadeen.
Hello, everyone. I feel like there's very little to add now, coming and speaking after two of my imams. I'd just like to say that I myself was a student here at Albany High. I graduated 3 years ago from the IB program over here. I'm now a student at U Albany, finishing up my last year in college, and I'd just like to say that I'm also in full support of allowing students to have the Eid festivals off. As a student myself here, I know it's usually hard going through the holidays and knowing you have to catch up with a lot of work and stuff after that. So I'd just say I'm also in full support of granting these days off. Thank you.
Shadab Ahmad.
Good evening. I just want to thank all the board. Good evening. I just want to thank all the board member to accommodating our kids and the needs and education. So just want to give a thanks, and we request you to allow us our kids to celebrate the Eid, the two Eid, so they can celebrate and they can enjoy their festival. Thank you.
Moving on to routine consent. I think we're all up on, everybody Wi-Fi up? Okay. No, okay, check again, because I'm up, Vicky is. Try again, so just letting you know, see if you can get on. And terrific. No, I can pass. Here, why don't you pass that over to them? Okay. I am, so. All right, routine consent. Can I get a motion, please, to accept to routine consent? Ms., I'll wait till Paula gets back. Ms. Tibbetts. So that is a motion by Ms. Savage, seconded by Ms. Smith. Any set-asides? Mr. Bruce, set aside. Any other set-asides? Seeing none? What? Oh, right. Well, I know what the set-aside is, right?
Yes, one human resources and also E. Joseph White Associates.
Okay. The HR add-on? Can I, so any other set-asides? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of the HR items other than those set aside, I'm sorry, the routine consent items other than those set aside? Jen, Ms. Lang? Okay, that is unanimous. Let's start with, in order E, please. Mr. Bruce, can I get a motion, please, for Joseph White Associates? Mr. Bruce, seconded by Ms. Smith. Discussion.
Okay, can you just bear with me for
Oh,
1
of course,
second?
take your time. I know we're working off of the computers and hard copies.
Okay, basically, I just wanted to address Joseph White runs the lottery system, and how do we determine his effectiveness in terms of running the lottery system?
I think Mrs. Wilson-Turner will speak to that.
The measurable objective for the contract itself is simply the successful completion of the lottery and the ability to fill seats throughout the year until all those seats are filled, particularly for the magnet program. And that's the only measurable outcome that is expected at this point in time.
Okay, we've had this discussion before around effectiveness of a lottery. Is there any way we can add that? Not necessarily this year because we're right in the middle of it, but can we look at that going forward?
So to be clear, Joe White doesn't set the parameters for our lottery, we do. And so I think it's part of the larger conversation we've been having about the structure of our lottery, what preferences we put in, et cetera. But Joe does builds what we ask him to build in terms of the lottery structure.
Right, but yeah, and he's the expert though, right? In terms of setting, no?
It's really our own internal policies that drive our lottery. So he does lotteries all across the country. They don't all look exactly like ours.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But,
All right.
but certainly that is something for a member item or to bring back up again, or we can also discuss it because I had another question on that. I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. But
No, I'm done.
so
Yeah, go ahead.
I think I'll ask it of you. But we had a discussion last year about the high school lottery and about putting in place for the high school lottery something that would drive equity in assigning students to the academies. So you know where I'm going with that. Is that in place for this year? Okay, so everybody remember. If not, I can mention it to Mr. So Dr. Chittor, do you want me to say what that? You were in the audience, and well, thank you very much. I appreciate that it is in place now, so that we will not have that kind of skewing in the various academies any longer. Thank you so much. Any further discussion?
One other quick question. So he just executes the lottery. He has no expertise around the lottery.
I mean, he can,
lottery in general.
He can tell us what other districts do, but no district is set up exactly the way that we are, that, having 3 magnet schools and then the pre-K lottery. Like, he does entire districts, that the entire district is lottery. So he could tell us all the different configurations, and we could get that information from him, but he doesn't dictate to us what our lottery structure looks like.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the Joseph White contract? That is unanimous. Thank you. The HR addendum item, may I get a motion for that MOU addendum? Ms. Smith, seconded by Ms. Savage. There won't be any discussion on this as it is a personnel matter. All those in favor of that? And that is everyone on the board other than Mr. Bruce. All against? Mr. Bruce, and then there's nobody to abstain. Seeing none, that passes.
I'd like to be able to announce that we are honored to have the extension of the Albany High principalship by Ms. Dale Ghetto. She has formally extended her retirement, and she is going to be working with us for 1 more year. And I'd like to say thank you for that, because she could be actually on a beach someplace in a couple of months, and she's decided to do this with us. And she is going to be the conduit to get us through the next 18 months and get us off the receiver list. And then I think then she'll be heading to the beach, Ms. Ghetto, I think, right? Okay. Okay, so I like to formally say thank you for your dedication and all the years you've given to us, and 1 more year to go. So thank you so much for your time and dedication.
And thank you, Ms. Ghetto, and go Falcons, as you always like to say. So there you go. We are now done with routine consent, and hang on, back onto computer. Action item, NYU Steinhardt. We have a resolution. Can I get a motion to accept the resolution? I will actually, can you pull it up and read it? Because I'm unable, you can't, all right. All right, hang on, if you can do it because my hands are.
I have it if you'd like me to read it. You got it?
So the resolution approval of the memorandum of understanding with New York University / Steinhardt, whereas the City School District of Albany is dedicated to revolutionizing teacher diversity, teacher education and preparation, and whereas the Embedded Masters of Arts Teacher Residency Program, paren, capital EMAT, close paren, is a rigorous technology-enhanced curriculum developed by NYU Steinhardt with full-time residencies to prepare, retain, and advance teachers. It is hereby resolved that upon the recommendation of the interim superintendent of schools, the memorandum of understanding between the City School District of Albany and New York University Steinhardt, dated March 8th, 2016, is approved by the Board of Education. Is that supposed to be 2017? Okay, so we're going to change that. So it says dated March 8th, 2017 is approved by the Board of Education. Can I get a motion? Ms. Smith, second. Dr. Chittor. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Discussion action policy. I always love turning this over to Ms. Savage. You bet.
So for policy tonight, we have two different things happening. We have a simple action on the two things we discussed last week, and I'd like, if everyone's okay with that, to take those two as one action. Is that okay with you, Madam President?
It is. It is, thank you.
All right, so we're going to vote to rescind two policies, 6030 performance bonds and 6211 interest on unpaid taxes. As previously discussed last time, it is not that those two things are not good things, but that they are not necessary to have as board policies.
Yes, I would. All those in favor of the two rescinded policies? Or rescinding the two policies to make them rescinded policies? We did not, I thought we, I'm sorry, I thought there was. I have a motion to rescind the two policies as described by Ms. Savage. And that is Ms. Savage and Mr. Bruce seconded. All those in favor? Unanimous. Ms. Savage.
Okay, so then after that, we're going to discuss tonight three policies. We will not be acting on these policy changes tonight. These are just discussion. We'll act next time, as is our standard procedure around policies. The first one, and I'll just tell you all three of them, I think, and then we can discuss them all three as a group. I think that's the most efficient way to do it. 6670 petty cash. This one came up as a result of the New York State School Boards Association review, which informed us that the New York State law requires a maximum of $100 in petty cash, while our policy had $125. So we're doing that to be in compliance with the law. And another small change that makes explicit in the policy that we don't pay sales tax, which we don't pay a sales tax, so that's not shouldn't be a big deal. The second one we're going to discuss tonight is 2320 special meetings. We used this policy recently when we had the special meeting around Secretary DeVos, and that was the first time in my experience on the board that we'd used that policy. When we used it, it became obvious to all of us that the policy was different than how everything else runs on this board, because everything else on this board requires majority consent, but the way the policy was written, it implied that a single board member could call a special meeting. So we took a look at that policy to make sure that it was consistent with everything else and modified it so it's more clear that it has to be a majority of the board to call a special meeting. Finally, 1722 research. This has to do with research that's done with our students. And again, this was one that NYSBA had recommended that we rescind. Dr. Wilson Turner reviewed it from the staff perspective. And we were lucky enough to have on the policy committee Dr. Tatur, who's quite familiar with research protocols. And we determined that not only is this really a protocol rather than a policy, but it's not as stringent as a research protocol would be from the outside anyway, so it really was not adding any value and just adding administration. So policy committee is recommending that we rescind 1722 research and that we make the modifications to 6670 and 2320 that have provided in red line online to all of you.
Would you like to make a motion, Ms. Savage?
I will plan to make my message in
We're
2
just
weeks,
discussing.
but for now
I
it's
apologize.
just discussion.
Okay, discussion. Mr. Bruce, we'll start with you.
So special meetings of the Board of Education, I've actually done a little research on this recently, and it appears from the New York State Education website that it actually only requires one person to call a special meeting.
I'm going to leave that to our fine attorney to speak to, but it appears that different kinds of school district have different requirements.
This actually request was made of me by the board president, arising out of that last circumstance when the board was setting a special meeting for the resolution dealing with the federal secretary. So I researched it at the request of both the board president and Ann is in charge of the policy committee. And without getting into the weeds of legal research, you are governed by the small cities school district law. So essentially the provision 2504 allows the board to set the circumstances under which special meetings would be called. So it's not governed by 1606.
Any other discussion on any of the three discussion item policies? Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Savage. We look forward to it coming up on March 30th. Now, the meat of the matter. Mr. Hogan, budget.
Good evening. We have two short presentations this evening. One is I'm going to do the overall budget, where we are with an update, and then Michelle Bridgewater and perhaps Piers will provide a community schools short presentation because there's been questions about that funding and how we were planning on spending it, et cetera. So. Here are the items I'm going to talk about. It looks worse than it is. We'll be able to go through these relatively quickly.
We gave you an hour head start. Just don't expect to use it up.
Okay. So here's the budget calendar. Essentially, there's a couple more meetings, and then we will be planning to adopt the budget. Of course, we'll be getting, hopefully, our state aid numbers by then. This is a continuation, but essentially we're focusing this year on these major areas: continuation of existing programs, creating the third interim middle school, addressing the E&L mandates, the academic plan, and redesigning the alternative ed program. We have some very good news, potentially. It's not real until they pass it, but both the Senate and the Assembly budget proposals call for additional state aid, so that's good news. The strange thing is I haven't heard either party say where the money's coming from, but in any event, they're lobbying for more money, so that's a good thing. I gave you the numbers here. I think we probably want to pay the most attention to the last column because foundation aid is an area where well over 100 districts are getting more than the foundation aid formula, and a lot of districts like us are getting less than 100% of what the formula says we should be getting. We're actually getting about 70% of, a little less than 70% of what we should be getting if they simply paid us what the formula said we were due. So that tells us we actually have a good opportunity when they're adding foundation aid. That's probably the spot where we most want them to add the money because we would probably benefit more than districts fully funded or overfunded. Here's just some update and changes, modifications that we've made since the last time we met. We've made some reductions in the salaries with staff transitions, 111,000 deduction. We also have discovered that we need to add some more resources in the music program due to enrollment. And also we have to add some additional resources to the AVID program to continue the program in its current plan and in its current format. There aren't any revenue adjustments at this time, but I am going to go through them very carefully one more time before we show up next time. So you may see one or two adjustments on that next time. Hopefully state aid would be a very nice one. But I'll look at all the areas again as well. So here's where we are. This is just the base budget, which is continuation of existing programs. Currently, expenses are 599,000 more than revenues. It would take about a 0.5% tax levy to close that gap. Again, the tax cap is 0.9%, 0.96%, just a little under 1%. We wanted to review this with you. This is the staff recommendation for the use of community schools funding. It's about 3.3 million. The next presentation we'll go through this more thoroughly, but these are just essentially one-line totals. We started implementing a community schools program this year in the priority schools. We're going to build on that model, and Michelle Bridgewater and company will tell you what that model is. Investment in the newcomer program, you're familiar with that. We essentially would set up a newcomer program at the North Albany School. The 50 North Lark Street Middle School, we can allocate the social emotional student supports like AIS to the community schools funding stream, and also investment in the academic plan. Again, primarily supports additional support services, social emotional student supports, and also some money in there we allocated to pre-K. The priority schools are listed in the model, and I think that was one of the board's question. Based on the way you're allocating the money, are you still going to have the full implementation in the priority schools? And the answer is yes, that was our goal. We carefully reviewed everything since that question was raised. So that was just community schools funding. Now we're back to the overall general fund. The priority items, there's a change here. The 2 assistant principals, which were needed for the community school model, we actually shifted the cost of those to the community schools funding. So that helps us in this area. The North Lark Street, additional staffing, that's been consistent through these presentations. It's essentially the additional staffing needed to gear up with the new interim middle school. The academic plan, that's actually provided to you. We came up with an option C and did a lot more work on that. Again, that's provided in here as a handout as well. And the alternative education redesign, option B is adding new teaching resources without adding the aides in the first year of the redesign. Ideally, they would like to add the teachers and add, I believe it's 6 TAs. But due to financial constraints, we're looking at a 2-year possible phase-in. I have made one adjustment in here. Not the total is still the same, but I did reallocate. If you look at the last column, the tax cert reserve, I put that to 0, and I put employee benefit reserve to 0, and shifted that up to the appropriated fund balance. I'm suspecting you're wondering why. And the answer is that we will probably have some excess fund balance this year, especially since the county is probably going to expedite payments on delinquent taxes. So the recommendation is to back off these other reserves, and by doing so, they'll be available for other years when we can use them. And at the same time, getting our fund balance more in line. I'll be looking at this again closely. We're going to meet with the county before the next meeting, and there may be adjustments here going forward as well, depending on how this whole package comes in with state aid and all the other variables. What happens in the budget process is a lot of things happen very quickly at the very end. And then based on all of this different information coming in, we look at coming up with the best staff recommendation we can, which is always very close to what we have here, and then moving forward with the board. We still have an excellent track record in terms of keeping the tax levy down. If you look at this, the 5-year run here will actually put us at an average tax levy increase and an average annual of 1.26%. So actually we've been doing a good job in that area in terms of trying to control the taxes and slow down the growth. This graph shows you if we just run a 2% growth assumption versus what our actual tax levies have been. And you'll see, and of course in those earlier years where the blue line is higher, that means the tax levy was greater than 2%. The reason being that that was during the recession, and 1 year we lost about $18 million in state aid net. So we were having a lot of difficulties at that time with decreasing revenues from the state. So again, we've corrected that line, and actually we're on a good trend as well at this time. So I think hopefully we'll have a better indication. State aid is the big number hanging out there. It does look like there's a good opportunity to get a state aid increase. If we wanted to implement everything that's on here on the earlier slide, we probably need about $1.6 million of additional state aid. And my guess, if I threw a pen at the wall today, would probably be between 1 and 2 million we probably would get anyways. So if all goes well. So I think we're in all things considered, a pretty good spot, certainly a better spot than several other years. So with that, I'll turn it back to the president for questions or comments.
Thank you so much. So I guess the question now, is, are we at the stage now where you would like a prioritization, or because you believe we could swing as much as 8 million on state aid, is that something you want to defer until March 30th and just have questions and comments from board members?
I think, actually, actually here, what we did on one of these slides is to try to generate discussion on that topic is, oops, it wasn't in community schools, here. The way staff is presenting them is in our recommended priority order, being the North Lark Middle School be set up with its staffing first. If there's still money available, move to the academic plan. For this piece of it, you understand the academic plan is much bigger than this. You have this spreadsheet. But this would allow partial additional implementation of the academic plan. We started it last year and did we're carrying all of that forward, but this would be in addition to the existing program. And then the next alternative, the next option in priority order from staff would be the alt-ed redesign, not taking anything away from that. We believe it would be a very good thing to do and help students. But sometimes you have to prioritize, so.
So I do understand that, and I do know that that sounds like a reasonable compromise when we don't know exactly what state aid is, to get sort of a gross sense about where people are, if they can live with your order. However, the one catch I see is that when we look at the percent that is attributable to each of the lines, you don't have to go beyond the first add-in line, not the 0 one, but the first one that has a dollar amount to it, to see that that pushes us up above the tax cap. Assuming that that no additional money comes in, then that would require a conversation about whether, well, I guess, let me ask it this way. Do you have a sense yet, or do you want us to do something we've done in prior years to go around as to whether there is any, like how I phrase it that way, any belief by any board members that they are willing to go beyond the tax cap, or do you feel confident that you know your board well?
I think I know the answer to that.
But I wouldn't hold it against you if you wanted to hear it from the board
Right.
members'
No,
mouths.
let's assume, that we want to stay within the tax cap. I assume that. So seeing head nods.
And it's not, again, I can't speak for everybody, but I know that we've talked, it's not that
Right.
we think these aren't important things to do, it's just we are in always such a difficult situation. We've passed referenda, we're opening buildings, and at some point, people will start, the taxes are high, people complain. Understandably, we still don't have a greater tax base to spread the tax burden out on. So
Right.
I would just share all those things publicly in the minutes as they're recorded, so everyone knows that this isn't some sort of serendipitous type of discussion. So that said, I guess we can go around, people can ask questions, make comments, and if you are also inclined, if you want to speak to the, at least, if not the percentages, which we know push us above a tax cap, but speak to Bill about whether you want to move the lines, or your priorities are different in terms of their order, or if your priority isn't even on this, so they can maybe start that conversation now. So I'm going to start with Dr. Chatur, or I guess we're in our informal mode. I'm going to start with Sridhar tonight on that side.
I'm going to pass for now.
That's just fine. Ellen?
Yes, I'm going to just start with just a question with more information about the North Lark additional staffing, whether that additional $1 million is primarily for more instructional staffing or, support staffing. I think it's a question for Bill about, what the staff breakdown would be, and I think a question for Dr. Wilkins about what does North Lark look like as a middle school without that $1 million in staff.
I can actually put the staffing up if you'd like. Let me just close this. You have to add staff. I mean, we wouldn't be able to mandate have enough people in front of the students, but
But this is additional staff, right? No, this is the staff generally. So I'm confused. The other priority items sounds like something optional, but that isn't optional in any sense, right? I'm confused. Okay, so it's not a nice thing to have. It's an absolute bare minimum necessity. Then it should have been in the base budget. I mean, but yeah, we understand.
I just wanted to clarify something. Are you asking, so that I understand it, that to the extent staff are not being hired who are not already employed here, we are already paying their salaries? So are you asking, is the million the additional hires, or is it the cost of all of the salaries of the people who will be inhabiting that building?
Oh, no, that wasn't my question, because I know that the staff of the salary, some of the salaries of all the people that would be at the school would be well over $1 million. I had misunderstood and thought that there was a baseline of additional staff needed for 50 North Lark that was in the base budget, and that this was beyond that staff. It would be nice to add if we had more money. So that sounds like that's not what this is.
Yeah, what had happened is the original line item or the original staffing had been broken out from base budget. So when it actually showed up in the next board meeting in a slide, I asked I asked Bill at the time, could you keep it broken out since it already was broken out, not for purposes of anything other than the consistency, because people would be saying, well, where's the money? Or where's that line that we saw before? So yes, it is a base budget in that it is required to meet the needs of the students being
So this
educated in
isn't
the
one
building.
this isn't one that as board members is up for discussion or up for how we feel about it. This is bare minimum to open the school. That's just what I absolutely needed to know. Thank you.
Okay. I can show you, actually, it's column 2, actually, column B, where the pointer is. This is how it's to be staffed, and it goes down, but there's 67.4 FTEs to set that up. We're hiring, everything will be a transfer except for 17.7 FTEs. Are new net. And what we did is we staffed this to meet the population coming in, and we also realized at the same time the supports needed because of setting these students up with academic intervention service, et cetera, comparable to what's available in the other middle schools. Oh, okay. So you'll see, and actually even on the first line with 10 elementary teachers, we actually are pulling 9 of them from other schools. As you recall, we're pulling some 6th grades out of some pre-K 6 buildings. So like that first line looks like a lot, but it's actually a net hire of 1 when we get all the way over to the column you can't see on the end.
That makes me feel very relieved because I was under the impression that we were trying to run this with skeleton staffing and then add more if we could, but it sounds like we're setting it up the way we need to get on the road to success. So thank you very much. That's good information. Thank you for explaining that clearly.
Okay.
Ms. Lang.
How much money of the community fund money have we used?
I don't know off the top of my head. The program we set up, you understand, everything came very, very late. And then, so we had to create a program, we had to get it approved, and then we had to start hiring. So the initial, let's call it phase 1, was a $1.6 million budget. If I threw a dart in the wall, we probably will spend $600,000 to $1 million this year. I don't really know because it's all delayed. It's on you spend, you get reimbursed. So we could give you that information in an update, but we're carrying that amount over for full implementation of the 1.6 million plus adding additional to it.
Mr. Bruce. Ms. Smith. Ms. Savage.
I just wanted to ask one question about, so in general, I'm relatively comfortable with the priority order, with the always prayer that we're going to get the state aid that we need, right? I mean, the fundamental issue is we think that all of our children deserve all of the resources that they're entitled to in order to get a good education, and because of inequities in the way that the state funding is distributed, that does not happen. So I caveat this whole thing by saying we're all in the same place on that. But in terms of priorities, one thing that was a relatively low-cost item, but I think might have a big impact in the academic plan. We had a presentation a couple of months ago from the music department, and as many of us know from that, and also from the presentation, I see Mr. Newell is here today, and also just from our own observations, there is a significant lack of diversity in our elementary, especially high school, but sort of increasing lack of diversity as the children get older. And so, you just don't see the wind ensemble looking like the demographics of our student body. And I know that that is something that we are all troubled by, especially given the research about how music helps kids graduate, that music education leads kids to academic success. So I had noticed in the academic plan in option A, which was the preferred plan, if we had all the money that we could, we would convert our music leadership from a chair to an administrative role, and I was assuming that the reason that was there is that there was an intent among cabinet to use that administrator to really shake up the music program in a way that would change the diversity, since that's been the issue presented by cabinet and board for many, many years. And so I then see in option C, which is the most that the staff is recommending at this time, that we would convert that music chair, which is currently 0.1 and 0.1. Mr. Newell and his colleague, Ms. Amori, are only 0.1 release time for their chair duties to 0.2 and 0.2, which is better, but still not an administrator who has the authority and the capacity to really shake up the program. So my question to staff is, if in fact you don't think that we should put option A for the music administrator in to shake that program up and try and get equity for all of our kids around music, are you anticipating some other plan not involving that administrator that would have that same result? And or is there any hope of getting that person in the program?
Karen, do you want to? Okay, so otherwise I'm doing it.
So before I speak to your question, Ms. Savage, I did want to point out that the upgrade that we were looking for in option C was to take the 0.2 music chair to a 0.4, and then the art chair from a 0.2 to a 0.4. And basically what that would mean is two full days a week versus the one. And because Josephine and Ed share the position, they each have technically a half a day, and it's hard. And as everyone on this board knows, our art chair and our music chairs work ceaselessly on behalf of the district. So we had originally envisioned an administrator to take on those two areas, but when we had to pare it down, we had to look and see, well, I know that if we gave them at least some more time, that they could more easily pay attention to the issue that you're talking about, which we've done. We have really done a big study this year around that, which I will be reporting on before the end of the year. And because there's a lot of factors that contribute, and there's no one thing to blame for that. There's a lot of things that are happening in our system and things that we could correct over time. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I guess I am saying that at least with that increase in time, we do believe that we could more effectively manage the logistics and the duties of music and art administration, or I don't like to call it supervision because they are teachers, and that's what we can do.
Well, thank you. I look forward to the report. And we do know, we have talked about a number of the factors, which, we know sometimes are different standards of if a child needs AIS, sometimes then they're not given music. or an instrument, or at least in years past it may have changed. But the different kinds of things where kids don't. Sometimes kids who need an alternative. I had children who had ants in their pants, and honestly, the idea of having some kind of other system for getting kids to move, whether it's recess, whether it's music, whether it's something else. So it should be interesting to see all the factors that come in. I do want to speak at least to support in not just theory, but at some point practice, whether this year or next year, or that we actually move to a music administrator, and not where the knee-jerk feeling from some people is, it's white privilege again to have that. And it's not for my kid, because I can advocate for my kid to get music if that were an issue. I'm so tired of sitting at concerts and looking at the stage and saying, sometimes it feels like I could be at, Guilderland or Bethlehem or someplace else, and I'm not looking like I'm in my district, and I'm not looking at the kids on the stage and seeing what should be represented. And there are a lot of factors that go into it. This isn't a blame issue. This isn't fault. This isn't blame. Those are the places where we should be seeing children represented, because many districts across the country have found that those are the kinds of outside-the-box tools, to quote my colleague on her outside-the-box talking as Vicki does, where it actually reaches kids. And it doesn't matter who the kids are, it just reaches them. And those are the kinds of things that can then, it's not just learning to read, then you get music. Sometimes it's get music and learning to read, just like sports. So enough said on that as part of the priority. So I just want to speak to that one issue. And then in terms of the priorities, I am fine and in fact appreciate being able to defer to the priorities set by staff, and really appreciate being able to trust that they know what they need to do to help move things forward. So we'll go around again. I was the last one. Dr. Jator. Oh, I'm sorry, Sridhar. This is when we do this informal. Over time, we usually do first names for when we do the closed O, but I forget sometimes.
So I had a question between option A and option C with regards to the STEM supervisor, which you've taken out. And part of the problem of increasing STEM, from where I see it, is our kids in the elementary and middle school don't have the right amount of interventions, so that when they come to the high schools, they are ready to graduate with the STEM programs. So wouldn't it be more beneficial to have a STEM supervisor for the elementary schools, just like making sure the kids who are in third grade read at the third grade level, make sure the kids who need to know the math and the science at that level actually are getting the right resources? So why would you get rid of that? I'm being partial here just because I'm a STEM person, but
honestly, it all came down to having to prioritize. And so we said to ourselves that we were committed to certain goals that we started last year, and to make sure that we could sustain and stay the course with those goals, even though we know there are other things that we need to work on at the district. And we would love to have option A in full full throttle.
No.
And Bill, every budget meeting that we have internally is like, guys, we gotta figure some things out. And so we debate and deliberate, and we had to stay committed to the K-2 literacy model for the elementary impact on the budget at this point in time. But we very much believe and know, based on our math data, that we have to do something differently for math at elementary school. And so we're going to continue to work at that. But at this point in time, we can't have everything be a priority, because then nothing will be. And we've got to continue to stay the course with the reading at this point in time and begin to look at other options for the math.
But is there an intermediate position that we can sort of open the door towards?
We've debated and gone back and forth about additional math coaches, because our math coaches right now are spread extraordinarily thin. Many of them have 3, if not 4 buildings that they're attempting to support. They do incredible work. We have new math curriculum resources that they're trying to get out there to support. But again, a math coach versus a reading teacher that's going to deliver direct instruction to students is a decision that we had to make. And so then it falls back really on Karen's office with the instructional supervisors on other ways that we can begin to chip away at our math challenges until we have funding to really support the vision that we have for math.
Ellen.
somewhat of a strange segue after the elementary math, but I just wanted to reiterate what Ann and Sue said about I'm glad that the art chairs are I'm glad that more resources are being put toward chairing the art and music departments, even if we're not able to do full-time chair people. I'm very glad to see that we'll have additional resources, especially with something as critical as music equity, something that's been on the minds of many board members this year. And I'm very glad that the administration is working to put more effort to it in order to kind of fix the systematic problems that exist in that area. And I'm excited to see, hopefully we'll be able to implement all of this Budget C.
Jen?
For option C, and I'm just trying to remember because I don't have the internet, there were 2 TAs that were put instead of 6, I believe, correct? Instead of 4? Is that what? Okay. And those 2 schools were prioritized because of what exactly?
In our original organization, it was DCS first because of the academic need in the building based on their test scores. And then actually also principal requests. Both Pine Hills and DCS requested the additional TAs, as did our 5 buildings who have the DITA model right now. They want more of it. But they understand that we're going to try to get everybody at least 1 before we circle back and add to it. Pine Hills has probably the least amount of reading teacher support in the building. And so based on the request that the principal made and that resource fact, we thought it was a priority to give them that DI support. Am I wrong? Oh, no. It's not supposed to be. I'm sorry. No, it's not, because we're giving Ash a reading teacher. So we said we should give Pine Hills the TA. So it should be Pine Hills.
That's okay. Kenny?
So my question, which is a little bit peripheral, is just how's the staffing coming at 50 North Lark?
Staffing at 50 North Lark, we just met last week, and actually tomorrow we're meeting to start with the first wave of it with the voluntary transfers, and then we'll go through that listing to the involuntary transfers, and then we'll start looking at the hiring process. So we would like to have the whole process done by mid-April. But we had a very good meeting last Friday, and it's funny that you should ask that. We're meeting tomorrow for 4 hours to start the process going. So,
Ms. Smith? Oh, Vicki, you're good? Ann?
So I just have the question that I ask every year at this time, which is, it's May 16th. We're supposed to meet on May 30th. If, in fact, there's no legislative runs between now and May 30th, March. If there's none between now and May 30th, well, then we'll just have to guess. But hopeful, I'm talking about 2 weeks from tonight. Is there any point in us meeting to have this same discussion 2 weeks from tonight if there is no substantive change in our state aid picture?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. There may be, as I mentioned, I'm going to be combing through the revenues again. We'll have more information from the county, but there may not be a lot of significant budget changes at that time. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Again, the timing on these things is always horrendous. I'm not sure.
Because we're supposed to
If it
meet on
would be.
March 30th and then again on April 6th right now.
Correct.
So I would just like to raise it as a possibility at agenda setting next week for us to look at the March 30th and the April 6th agendas and see if they could be combined into one meeting if, in fact, we don't have sufficient state aid information for us to do it as one meeting. So I see that from the look on Ms. Adler's face, she disagrees with me. She's entitled to her own opinion, but I prefer one meeting over 2 if we can get away with it.
Boy, you give a person an inch. It's 10 after 8, and we're winding down, and that's insufficient. Anyway, but thank you. So the question I have is, if on your range of 1 million to 2 million, we wind up actually getting more on the higher end of it, do you have a set of next level priorities that, in other words, so we get an extra $400,000. So you're going to move into the plan then well, I know you can spend money, the point is.
Right.
So in other words, you'll be giving us some additional options on the academic plan to use.
Right, we would have to reprioritize, and cabinet's gonna have to move fast and furious.
That's the answer
because
to my question. Okay, so-
sometimes these things, you get it in the morning or 11 o'clock at night, and we're gonna meet either that night or 24 hours later. So we do have to move very quickly, and you do get into that. That's why I said a lot of things happen very quickly at the end, where, well, we can't do the whatever option C. We don't have $821,000 of general fund for the academic plan. So how do we pare this down to $450,000 and come back with, we have to come up with proposals very quickly. But I've never, ever in my life had a problem with this group spending money. So when we cut money, that's hard. But spending money is always easy. So this group or any other group I've worked with, in terms of, it's easy to spend. And we can put that stuff together pretty quickly.
Well, it seems like it's time for us to move on to our guest.
Guys, one quick question.
Sridhar, sure. There's one last question.
Assuming that we have no more increases, what kind of interventions can we have to improve our region's performance? I mean, you're going to need more staff to help the kids get to that point.
Regions or elementary testing?
No, regions.
Regions? We haven't put anything in particular for that. Not human resources in for that.
Right, so we are, we have extended day activities for tutoring students to meet or exceed the passing of Regents exams. We have APEX as well. And we're also offering tutoring during the regular school day during a student's lunch period too, and that's coming up soon. So we have some initiatives in place that help students to beyond the regular daily instruction.
I think also we can't say enough at the high school about the data work that they're doing. And with the help of Kent's office, we have these beautiful dashboards, these data dashboards, and people are loving how these are working because it helps us to identify students really almost in the moment to try to help them get to that next level. So we have such a better facility this year to look at the data, identify students who are almost there and that we need to dive in and give them that little bit of a push so that they can get to success on those exams. So I would say that with that platform, we hope to see greater success this year.
I would like to also make sure that the board get a chance to look at the data dashboard because it is
You're just reading my mind. I was going to ask Ms. Beck, I was going to ask Karen, could you give us in an SBU so that it can be posted? Obviously, certain things redacted, but so that they could see what an example of a data.
I think that would be
dashboard
from Kent Baker because
Okay,
what's
whomever.
so interesting about that. There he's over there. But what's so interesting about that is that he's busy trying to connect the district to the web to the Wi-Fi. But the data dashboard is so specific, it's by child. So you know exactly what's going on, just like what Ms. Bechtel said, in the moment that they're actually living and breathing the region. So I can't begin to tell you how important it is for you all to see that. So we'll do that.
That was the presentation that we had at the last board meeting about the work that is being done, the interventions being done at the high school, so that students are identified. Sorry, Michelle. So the students are identified, that the guidance counselors, that the academy principals, the assistant, that they're all actually know their students, know what they have to do. They know how many regions they have to pass, and then the push in the second half of the year for children to actually make up those regions that they need to actually cross the stage.
Yep.
Vicki?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. My mind goes goes around about. When is it not about more adults in the classroom, but rather about the way in which we deliver instruction? And so, I mean, I know it's not a new question. I sit here and that's where my mind keeps kind of going. So so I want to, this data, I mean, we're doing this from the elementary level on up, are we not, right? So we actually can see what's going on with a child. And are we also able to give them some means of success? So, because what happens is you kind of go down a path of, it's not working for you, you're not doing well on something, and it spreads to something else, when really it's this one core thing that you haven't addressed. So I always struggle with, how do we help give more children a sense of success, a way in which they're moving and progressing. And maybe it's just this one thing, or you know what? I'm sorry. I'm not really all that articulated about some of this, but I'm okay. Go ahead, sis, because I'm just rambling now.
No, because Ms. Wilson Turner talked about it at the last board meeting about the importance of instruction and differentiation, and really making sure our teachers are prepared to address the issues of right at the building, at the classroom, with that little one. So she talked about that last time. So I'm looking at her because she's like driving.
Well, it's because I laugh because I look at Michelle, and she and I have the conversation a lot recently that we're not resource poor. We have a lot of human resources in our buildings, and it's about building the capacity of the individuals that we have there to do the work we need them to do. And so Kent has built this beautiful vehicle, but we now have to train people on how to execute that so that it actually can be used to change the practice throughout the system. And it's going to take time, because really having a good understanding of what your data is telling you to be able to use it to diagnose is really what we have to train people to do, as opposed to a surface level understanding of you're high, you're medium, you're low. And so I will very transparently say it's a work in progress that we as an instructional core have been discussing all the time about how do we build people's capacity to do this work well. And it started with Kent and his team building the resource, and now it's about training folks to be able to use it efficiently and effectively.
So that's what you spoke about last week, where the question was, what about when you spoke cogently about SPA and about things happening there, and that until a building has, or remind people, you say, see, we do pay a lot of attention. So until a building actually has the systems in place, it's just continuing to do the same things over and over that aren't working.
Right.
So once you get the systems in place, then it can hopefully start working. So.
And the thing that was really important is going back to Kent and Trish and what they were able to build. The dashboard just got up, I want to say clearly December, where it was complete. So we're just really getting into this. It's only been 4 months. So this is amazing that we're having the conversation even now with this dashboard. The dashboard changes everything.
Go ahead.
Sure, Anne.
So is that the job of the data coach, to help teachers better utilize their data to teach? And so is that someplace else that we should be looking for resource allocation to help? No? She's shaking.
I actually just leaned over to Karen because we've been searching for a second data coach most of the year at the elementary level. It can be the job of any instructional coach, in my perspective, to be able to train teachers how to look at data effectively. So my literacy coach should have a solid understanding of the ELA data that sits in front of her and help teachers be able to dig deep and diagnose based on that data. How we use our data coach right now, the one person that we have running between 12 elementary buildings, is to do pilot work where they're trying to build the capacity of small groups of teachers over time over the course of the year to be able to do that work. But I think we can deploy more people to train people to do that work more effectively.
And then am I correct, going back to when I first got into the district and was watching Tom Giglio at DCS run what I think was a textbook RTI model, because I know RTI gets just a lot, that you then are taking that data, and then in addition, everybody's sitting around the table and discussing what went on in the home that week and what did the child bring to, no, I mean, basically look, because as we know when we discuss our students in our district, that we're not looking at somebody who's, every child is not coming fully fed and fully clothed and in the same place at night in warmth and all of that, so that we take the data, but then we're also, the additional challenges we have, because I'm sure there are people that can hear us talking now and say, why are you making it so difficult? Just sit down and teach people to read and get, the teacher in the classroom, because maybe when you're sitting at an RTI meeting, or you could just do it without it, but it provides a format, you're learning that somebody just had some trauma in their family. And so their fluency issue is affected by that, and then it's affected in something else. And so I just want to point that out, because as I'm hearing us talk, I know that that's what we're talking about, but not everybody not around the table may know that and might think, why are we making it so tough? Well, we're not making it so tough, but the lives of a lot of are not as easy as they are other places. And when you're getting 70% on the dollar, and places where they have it easier are getting over 100% of their foundation aid, then it makes it even harder to take children who we really need to provide equity for, that they're not getting it elsewhere. So, I mean, I know it's a tough job. I appreciate it. I appreciate talking about this in our informal, workshop session. Vicki, something else?
And so the other thing I've been thinking a lot about, and it's because I have to interact with a whole bunch of other schools, not ours, but others. And so they have these great extended day kind of programs and features, right? And in fact, sometimes I'm like, I'll talk to staff and they're so excited about what's happening in the after school. And then I go, well, that's great, but why is this not connected to the daytime? Why isn't this excitement happening in the daytime, instruction? So I'm wrestling with that question too of if something really great is happening through our extended day, how does that help or support, or are we tracking that piece too? It's just a global question that I ask of most districts. So how do we tie these things together? How can something in the evening be so wonderful and terrific? You've got all these pieces, but I don't see how it's coming together to impact on that performance. And maybe it takes time.
Part of that goes back to what Ms. Savage has alluded to with the music. It's about the student engagement. So you have a really tight after-school program. A child is really looking forward to that transcends during the day in the engagement of that child during the school day. So that's really more of a qualitative versus a quantitative kind of gathering of information. You think about the sports teams with our kids who are so engaged, and they start to really focus on the academics because they want to make sure they can stay on the team. It's again about the feed-in and the engagement of that child. So for after-school activities, I know for certain ones, the kids are going to behave better, they're going to be engaged in school better because they want to participate in that after-school activity. So it's a little bit of, not a trick question, Ms. Smith, but it's a little bit more intricate than that because it really is about student engagement and having finding that hook for that child with the after-school.
Right.
So.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out how we get that same engagement during the daytime in the classroom.
So I don't mean to cut you
No,
off,
it's
but
a later
where
thing,
it's not what our topic is, and we probably need to, we're really ahead, and it was budget, so I was letting it go for all of us Farfield, but we're gonna have Michelle speak now and bring it back into community schools.
But please don't dismiss this so easily. I wasn't
not
asking.
dismissing- I'm not dismissing
but
it.
it wasn't a trick question. It's just, there's all these resources that come into the afternoon, and I just don't understand how I can go into some schools and they're like, oh, this is really, really great, and in the afternoon, and it doesn't seem to work in the daytime. I'm just trying to understand that, and I get that it's not on topic, but we're spending a lot of money on daytime things. Do you understand? And so I'm trying to figure out why some of that daytime stuff isn't working.
Well, I understand, but that's not, that is a huge global issue. I certainly understand the frustration.
Yes, just want to raise it, that's all.
No, I didn't stop you from raising it. It's just right now, instead of having an answer and then another question, I want to have Michelle talk about community.
And
if I haven't said, it's a conversation worth having, sorry.
And I don't think Vicki's comment is disconnected from the community schools model. I think that one of our challenges has been not being able to have someone dedicated to build that link between what's happening in after-school programs and the school day programs, and it's been left on the shoulders of principals alone. And I think this model offers us some opportunity to begin to be strategic in building some of those linkages. And I say that's the vision for the work, and we all know the time it takes to build it well is always a challenge. But I'm hopeful. I'm going to go. Bill said I had 5 minutes. I like 5 minutes. And really, it's fine. And if you know me, I'm a truth talker. But there are some slides. There's just a few slides here, much of which was presented earlier on. And really, this is an opportunity just to give an update as to where we are. You know, the programs include expanded learning opportunities, so that speaks to what you were trying to refer to earlier. That school-based school support, mental health, health services supports is an opportunity. And then the biggest part of the community schools model is building partnerships that make sense for our families, and that makes sense that for us to provide at the school site. Okay. We do have 6 schools who are slated to have a community schools model. They're listed, oh, I gotta do that too, right? They're listed up here. It's important to know that for this current school year, we're working on ALC, Arbor Hill, Giffen, and Sheridan. And then next year, we'll begin to phase in Toast and Phillips Schuyler Achievement Academy. And you'll see the asterisks are those schools who are priority schools, and Phillips Schuyler is a priority school that was identified in 2012, 2013. The staffing structure that we've selected for Albany in terms of our community schools includes a community school site coordinator, an assistant principal, and home school coordinator in each of our community school sites. It's the development of those partnerships that make sense based on the needs assessment. It's an effort to create schools as the center of community in those neighborhoods where they're located, and an integrated focus on academics, health supports, community engagement, and youth and community development. For this current school year, Sheridan Prep has identified, and I believe the board approved the appointment of their community school site coordinator. Arbor Hill and ALC, and what's my last school? Giffen are in the process of interviewing. They've completed their interviews. ALC is doing a second round, so we expect that you'll have some names ready for the next board meeting. One of the things that I've come to recognize in doing research on this model is that it is rare for a district to do many schools at one time. I've reached out to the Children's Aid Society, who runs the National Coalition for Community Schools, and I've been in touch with the director. And we're looking at a proposal from them to do some training to make sure we do our best to try and get this right. And so that you'll see a proposal coming your way with regards to that support and training for those school-based leadership teams as they begin to conduct the needs assessment, get a strong understanding of the community and the demographics, and build a program that makes sense for each of those schools, which we expect to look very different. For 17-18, we'll be looking at hiring community school site coordinators for Schuyler and Toast, and the assistant principals for Arbor Hill, Toast, and Schuyler. And again, we'll do that same sort of training model with those schools. I want to acknowledge my colleague, who's my real partner in crime, and that's Eileen Leffler, because we've had lots of conversations around when do we start to build the other 2 schools up. And my thinking is, can we just get the 4 running? And we may be looking at a timeline in January of beginning the same hiring process and training process for the spring, just to give us a sense, and I would say give me an opportunity to make some missteps and make some corrections so that we don't take the whole system through as any challenges if necessary, if we can avoid them. And then Bill talked about where the aid is going. The majority of the funding is going to developing those community school models, providing the supports that we've identified are necessary, building opportunities for those leadership teams to have training and to begin to look at the partnerships based on the needs assessment that makes sense. And if you need any other questions or have any other questions, absolutely. Oh, okay. That's where I'm at.
Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. There had been a question about it, and this really laid everything out beautifully. So we'll start with Mr. Bruce. Of course. Ms. Bless you. Jen.
How many or are you in conversation with partnerships currently, or how many are you still in the preliminary phase of that?
We're not in conversations with any partners because the needs assessment will drive what the school community has identified, what they need, and then we'll look at those partnerships based on that needs assessment.
Ellen.
That was basically going to be my question. Who is determining what the needs are? Would that be faculty? Are there parents? Are there who's part
So
of that
part
right
of the
now?
work with the Children's Aid Society is to share with us tools that they've used in conducting this work. They have over 20 plus schools in New York City. But the parents, community, staff, all of those constituents are involved in that needs assessment process.
That's excellent. That's excellent. It sounds like you guys are really doing a good job putting this together and going to the leaders in the field for guidance. And I think that is what we need to do. We don't need to reinvent the wheel when we've got a lot of
expertise.
Yeah. Thank you.
I was just going to say, actually, each school, if it's done right, will be inventing its own wheel. So it actually, we will be, right, so it will be doing that. Sridhar.
Is Albany Promise still a part of this?
They have the potential, depending on the partnerships that are in their schools. Some of them may or may not be on the advisory teams for those schools.
I'm sorry, just behind you, you have people who, like me, and they
my
were
friend
involved
back
in
here.
before, and my involvement spanned many, many years. There's going, well, we're hopeful that it will resurrect itself, and therefore, at some point, be able to partner with us in a very comprehensive.
And I want to be clear,
thoughtful
our
way.
schools already have partnerships, you know, and so when we're looking at our site-based teams and they're looking at parents and some of the community members who will be a part of that initial planning phase, the schools will identify those individuals, but they have relationship with community partners and parents already.
Vicki.
You said at least 3 things that I just want to make sure I have in my mind. What? Okay. See, Anne, I think I really, this is what I appreciate. You said the training with Children's Aid Society, and not because I think it's so needed, because I know you have this experience, but I think it's because of the rollout. You know, 6 schools, so many things at once. So I really want to say I appreciate that's a very thoughtful piece from my perspective. And there was one third thing, but I'm good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kenny, did you know? Anybody else? Oh, Anne, I'm sorry, I forgot about you. Sorry.
It's okay. I just had a question about the slide immediately prior to this one, which has to do with the way the funds are distributed. And my question was, the academic plan, 467,000. Does that mean portions of the academic plan that are to be distributed to schools that are not community schools, meaning they're not the 4 this year and the 6 next year? And it's maybe a question for Bill and not for you, Michelle. I'm just trying to understand what that means, that 467.
Let's see, we've identified it. Well, part of that is 180,000 just pre-K district-wide. District-wide behavioral specialist, district-wide social worker, district-wide psychologist.
So I can find this out myself by looking at the academic plan budget, is that right?
It's the gold color. It's actually,
okay.
SAW
I
has
see.
a
I see.
homeschool coordinator, and the other ones seem to be district-wide.
And that's an acceptable use of community schools funds to use for district-wide, even if they are having an impact on schools beyond the ones that are identified as community schools?
Yes.
Yeah, there's not a rule that says you can only spend on priority schools. It's really, it talks about the initiative and what's allowable expenses.
So it looks like that is it. Michelle, thank you so very
Thank you,
much.
everyone. Thank you.
Much appreciated. That looks like it concludes the business portion of our meeting, because this is an informal workshop meeting. We do not do board member items or committee reports or board discussion. And so may I entertain a motion to, I look at the faces of staff. I don't think I've ever had a meeting in 6 years that has ended like this. May I get a motion to adjourn? Ellen, seconded by, come on, let's not all sit there quietly. Sridhar, thank you. All those in favor of adjourning? And that is unanimous. Thank you all.
Well, now